everyone, and welcome back to the Andres Escobar Talk Show, episode 14. This is Julia Laugero, Director of Business Development at Lime Escobar Architecture. Today, it's an honor for us to have as a special guest Piero Lissoni, international known architect, designer, and creator at Piero Lissoni and Partners. So, welcome to the show, Piero. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me also, and I'm very honored to be inside, in this kind of special community. Thank you, and welcome to everybody.
Thank you, Piero, for joining us.
So, Piero, let's start with you. We had a previous conversation also with Andres, and we were actually talking about architecture. And I know one of your kind of statement was that architecture is not a definition of art. So my first question to you is, how do you define the role of architecture today?
The role of architecture and the architect's role today, it's a level of, I think, incredible complexity, because we never in the past and never will be in the future, something easy and simple. When I'm talking about of this level of complexity, I think about not the classical complexity inside in a construction or inside in a creativity, but the complexity is a social complexity. It's this kind of spatial consciousness. When you build something, you need to be responsible. It doesn't matter if you are Andrea Palladio or you are Andres Escobar, doesn't matter. You need to be responsible. It means when you design something, you need to put inside not only your creative ego, you need to use a lot of different qualities and a lot of different knowledges and a lot of different ideas around of this spatial work inside in a strong community. Because we never design a building in the middle of the desert, but even I try to design a building in the middle of the desert, I need again to be responsible. That's it, not more. And I don't like to think about, our work, it's artistic work, because we are not artists. Our link and our feedback, is a common feedback. We live inside, in a society. I'm not alone. When I design something, I do something for a society. And it doesn't matter if, it's good or bad. That one, it's a level of discussion, but I'm not alone. One artist is alone. It's in front of himself. It's a pure consciousness by me, artist, and again, myself, artist. When you are architect, you are you and the rest of the society. Not easy.
Very well told. And Andres, what is your perspective on that end?
Well, I think that Piero put it very, very well. I think that the role of designers and architects is to address the needs of the community that you live. So, and you could actually, depending on the type of project that you're working on, the whole idea is to have that understanding of who the end user will be, what is it that we're trying to deliver, so that the end result reflects that study or those prerequisites that establish what the end result will be. So when Piero says an artist could just come out with something wonderful that basically appeals to himself and some people will appreciate it, it's a different aspect. I think that everything that we do, whether it's a piece of furniture, or whether it is a retail store, or whether it is a building, or whether it is a library, it has to address that community that is going to be presented to. And it is a pragmatic approach, and it should be part of the whole narrative of how you come up with this final product. So I kind of agree with Piero about the whole approach of what architecture and design is all about.
Great. And Piero and Andres, both of you comes from very different cultural backgrounds. Piero, you're Italian. Andres, you're coming from Colombia. So my main question is to both of you, what do you think you are bringing as added value to the US market? And what on the reverse, the United States are adding to your practice? Piero, feel free to start.
At first, I don't think about of market, but I think about of culture. You know, the whole discussion is around of culture, and doesn't matter if the culture is focused on to be very efficient in business or not, or to be very efficient in culture or not, but it's anyway culture. You know, I'm European and not only Italian. When I talk about of European ideal surrounding, it means if you're born in Europe, you need, for example, to use many different languages, because in our country, it's quite common, you know, to talk and to mix match different culture and different languages. In the end, we become in the same atmosphere, you know, we live inside in a special creator, social creator with many different culture altogether, and we become European. Well, I think it's the same probably for Andres. It's from another country too. But you know, when you move Europe to United States and or North America, you need anyway to understand this incredible level of culture too. You know, it's a little bit different because in the end, the old America for us or United States, it's like a special pot of many different cultures all together again. You know, you need, and I like to learn a lot of about and you know and you know I like this kind of primordial soup of culture. Many different museums. Think about of article on the newspapers. Think about of magazine. Think about of books. Well, it's incredible level of culture. I don't talk about of buildings. I don't talk about of architecture. I don't talk about of design. I like to think, you know, all of our words, they are in the end connected with this fil rouge of culture. And I learn a lot. I learn a lot, and luckily, some people in the United States, they learn too. And, you know, it's a good feedback in that. Or if you like, it's a special crossover.
Andres, what you would like to add on your perspective?
Well, you know, I think something very interesting happened to me when I was a child. My father did his postgraduate studies in Sorbonne in Paris, and he was a big fan of Europe, not only France. And when Piero mentions Europe, Europe is Berlin, is Paris, is Milan, is Rome, is to a certain extent London and Lisbon and Madrid. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of culture. And since I was a little child, you know, my father actually, you know, explained to us that you need to get involved and understand all these cultures in order to be able to, you know, become more wholesome. And my traveling had, and I've been very fortunate. I was able to really visit all these countries in the early stages of my career. I worked with Villemot in Paris and understood what Haussmann Boulevard was, and experienced in Art Nouveau and understanding history from a design standpoint. So I think that enriches us, and I think that as Piero mentioned on a previous conversation, there have been some great architects also in the United States, but these architects were in the 50s and the 60s. I mean, you're talking about KPF, you're talking about some wonderful design and industrial designers as well. So I think that in this day and age, I think that to be able to help the design and architectural field, this worldly experience help us immensely. And it's because we understand the different communities, the different societies, and I think that world exposure is as important as a university degree.
Yeah. So I have another question, a little bit more on your private side. we know we had spent and we had stayed at our home for a long time during these past few months. So I'm asking you if there is any specific piece of furniture that you really particularly fall in love during this long time staying mostly at our homes. Piero?
Oh my God, this one is
You can
such
have
a
more than
difficult
one.
question. Can you imagine the answer? Well, thank you. More than one, I feel a little bit comfortable for that. One beautiful armchair designed by Charles and Rhymes. It's the Rhino chair, very good for reading books and sleeping a little bit. The LC2 by Le Corbusier. You know, they are for me so poetic, and I spend a lot of time on top of them. Very good again for make many different things and thoughts. One antique Japanese tansu with a lot of small ceramic and glasses pieces inside, you know. Well, I like the idea to be connected with some small pieces of my current life, but all of that, you know, they follow me since many years, and they are for me like friends. Luckily, I didn't choose any furniture designed by myself because I don't live in a house with furniture designed by myself. Luckily, I never live in a catalog in my life. And the last one, books. Books and books and books and books and books and again books, and Spotify for the music.
I haven't had the opportunity to really design furniture other than for myself. So, and I usually design it, and I get inspired by other great architects, and I think that the inspiration, when I said at the very beginning that I was very, excited to have Piero with us today, is because the work that he has done for Knoll and for B&B Italia, it always inspired me. I think that the clean lines, so on and so forth, are beautiful. So I've designed a sofa for our apartment, our condo, that is actually an inspiration that stems from that sort of aesthetic. So I love it, and we use it quite a bit. But notwithstanding that fact, I'm always kind of like design things around my wife, my spouse. So I always have done furniture for Bella, and it's kind of like a private collection. But one chair in particular, which I think is the same one that Piero sort of like referred to, it is the Charles Eames lounge chair and ottoman, which is beautiful. And that's my wife's favorite chair. She sits and she reads and she loves it. And this is one chair that when we kind of like downscale from a big house to a condominium, she says, you could buy whatever you want, but you cannot get rid of my Charles Eames. So it is beautiful because it's not only just a comfortable chair, it's a piece of a sculpture. So I think that is one of the characteristics that are very important to me, is that when you actually have some pieces of furniture that are not just furniture, they're just pieces of art within your environment. So Charles Eames would be probably the top. And this is something that I always enjoy.
Yeah, I understand you perfectly.
Very good, Piero. An honor to have you in our show today. It was really a pleasure. I spent more the conversation and learn a little bit more about also what are your favorite private spot in your daily life. So again, thank you so much for being part of this show, and to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you, Piero.
And see you soon, I hope, quickly in New York.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For taking the best martini in town.